The world remembers Queen Victoria as one of the greatest monarchs in British history. But before she became the symbol of a powerful empire, she was only a young girl whose life was changed by destiny. Victoria was born in 1819 into the British royal family. At the time, nobody knew that this quiet young princess would one day sit on the throne of Britain. Her early years were not easy. After the death of her father, her future became uncertain. Because of the changes in the royal line, Victoria became the next possible heir to the crown. From a young age, she was prepared for a life of responsibility. She lived under strict rules, and many people around her tried to control her decisions. She had very little freedom, but inside her heart was a strong desire to choose her own path. Victoria was intelligent, determined, and eager to prove herself. When she turned 18, her life changed forever. On the morning of June 1837, she received the news that the king had passed away. The young princess was now the Queen of the United Kingdom. A girl who had spent her childhood preparing for an unknown future suddenly carried the responsibility of an entire nation. The crown represented power, but it also represented sacrifice. Victoria had to leave behind the ordinary life she never had. From that moment, her journey as one of the most famous queens in history began. But the challenges waiting for her would test her strength, courage, and determination. When Queen Victoria became monarch, Britain was entering a completely new era. The country was changing faster than ever before. New industries were growing. Cities were expanding. And the world was watching Britain become one of the most powerful nations on earth. But inside the royal palace, many people still doubted the young queen. They wondered if a woman so young could handle the enormous responsibility of ruling a kingdom. Victoria understood that she had to prove herself. She spent long hours studying government documents. She listened carefully to her advisors. And she slowly learned how to make difficult decisions. At the beginning of her reign, she faced many challenges. Some politicians tried to influence her choices. Some people believed the monarchy was losing its importance. But Victoria wanted to show that the crown could still represent strength and stability. She refused to simply follow others. She wanted her own voice. With time, the young queen became more confident. The same girl who once lived under strict control was now making decisions that affected millions of people. Her dedication impressed many across Britain. People began to see her not as an inexperienced young ruler, but as a determined queen who was ready to protect her nation. As the years passed, Queen Victoria became the symbol of a new age. An age of industry, progress, and change. But while the world saw a powerful monarch, Victoria was still searching for something more personal. She wanted someone who could understand her. Someone who could stand beside her. Not as a servant of the crown, but as a true companion. And the greatest change in Queen Victoria's personal life came when she met Prince Albert. Before Albert entered her life, Victoria carried the heavy responsibility of the crown almost alone. She was a queen surrounded by advisors and politicians. But she was also a young woman who wanted someone she could trust completely. When Victoria and Albert met, their connection was immediate. Albert was intelligent, thoughtful, and deeply supportive. He understood the pressures Victoria faced and became the person who could calm her during difficult moments. Their marriage was not only a royal arrangement. It became a true partnership built on respect, friendship, and love. Together, they created a family life that was admired across Britain. They spent time with their children and worked together on many important ideas. Albert encouraged Victoria to support education, science, culture, and new discoveries. He believed the monarchy should not only hold power, it should also inspire and serve the people. Behind the grand palace walls, Victoria found happiness that she had never experienced before. Albert became her closest advisor and the one person who understood the woman behind the crown. The public admired them as a symbol of devotion and family values. Their relationship showed Britain a different image of the royal family. A family filled with love, responsibility, and tradition. For many years, Victoria and Albert stood together through challenges and successes. But history would soon bring the greatest test of their lives. A tragedy that would leave Victoria changed forever, and take away the person who had become her greatest source of strength. In 1861, Queen Victoria faced the greatest tragedy of her life. The man who had stood beside her through every challenge, Prince Albert, became seriously ill. Victoria refused to leave his side. She stayed with him day and night, hoping that he would recover. The Queen, who had faced political battles and the pressure of ruling a nation, now faced a pain that no power could defeat. But despite every hope and every prayer, the moment she feared finally arrived. Prince Albert passed away. The palace that was once filled with happiness suddenly became silent. Victoria had lost not only her husband but also her closest friend and greatest supporter. The crown still remained on her head, but inside her heart she felt completely broken. After Albert's death, Victoria changed forever. She wore black clothing as a sign of her endless mourning. She kept his personal rooms preserved exactly as they had been. His clothes, his books, and his belongings remained untouched. Every object reminded her of the life they had shared together. Many people wondered if Victoria would ever return to her public duties. For a time she stayed away from many royal events. But slowly she understood that she still had a responsibility to her people. Victoria learned how to carry her grief while continuing to lead the nation. Her sadness became a permanent part of her story. But so did her strength. The world saw that behind the powerful image of the Queen was a woman who experienced the same emotions as everyone else. A woman who loved deeply, lost painfully, and still found the courage to continue. After the loss of Prince Albert, Queen Victoria continued to rule Britain with determination and strength. The years after his death were not easy. Every day she carried the memory of the person who had shared her dreams, her responsibilities, and her happiest moments. But despite her personal pain, she never abandoned her duty as queen. Britain continued to change during her reign. New inventions transformed everyday life. Industries expanded. Cities grew. And the British Empire reached a level of influence that made Victoria one of the most recognized figures in the world. To millions of people, she represented stability and tradition. But behind the crown was a woman who had experienced love, loneliness, and sacrifice. As Victoria grew older, she became a symbol of an entire era. The Victorian age carried her name and reflected the values and changes of her long reign. She watched her children and grandchildren become part of a new generation of the royal family. Yet the memory of Prince Albert remained with her until the end. Her story was not only about power. It was about a young girl who unexpectedly became queen. A woman who faced challenges with courage. A wife who never forgot her greatest love. And a ruler who carried the responsibility of a nation for many decades. When Queen Victoria passed away in 1901, the world mourned the end of an extraordinary chapter in history. But her legacy continued. She was remembered not only as the queen who ruled the greatest empire of her time. She was remembered as a human being whose life was filled with dreams, struggles, love, and loss. The crown gave her power. But her story gave her a place in history forever.